invited all the biggest internet sensations to boot camp.
I'm sending heart emojis. You can do it.
Which unlikely influencer will walk away with $25,000 on Worst Cooks in America?
We have fire!
Viral sensations.
To the puppet nerds of the world, this may sound absurd, but this is the place you need to be. We'll do an interview and then we'll stitch and glue all of the dolls, we'll make it shake. If you wanna be in the know and to play like a pro, subscribe to Puppet Nerd.
Welcome back, Puppet Nerds. Adam Krutinger here, and have I got a surprise for you. If you've been following my Instagram, which is the best way to see what I'm up to day to day, you may have noticed that I'm going to be on Worst Cooks in America. And the first episode airs January 1st. If you don't get the Food Network, it's also on Discovery Plus. It'll be streaming there. And this season is called Viral Sensations. So they found a bunch of content creators from all across the United States, and they had us compete against each other cooking food, which is not one of my strong suits. But quite frankly, nobody in the competition had those skills. That's why they call it Worst Cooks in America. So if you want to see some puppetry fun with some cooking on the side, make sure to check it out. When I was officially cast on the show, I knew that they wanted to have some puppetry fun. And of course, they told me to bring some puppets, which I did. But I knew I wanted to make something extra special. So when I decided I wanted to build something new for this show, I thought, what better than to make a puppet of and Burrell. And this is the picture that I used as reference. So, let's get started. I actually did this build over the summer, right before I had to go, so I only had like a day to do it. So I decided to use an existing pattern that I had. So I used my small fry pattern that I slightly altered to make the head a little taller. That way it'll hold her hair a little bit better. If you're interested in the small fry pattern, or what will eventually be the tall fry pattern, you can check out my website, puppetnerd.com, to purchase that. So anyway, I started off with the foam, and I decided to do a head plug, which is my favorite technique for mouth grip inside of the puppet. And as always, I use some plastic bins for my mouth plates like this. And then I stuff the head to give it a little bit more support. So now looking at that photo, there's a couple things that stood out to me to really make this look like Anne Burrell. One is, of course, her hair, which is very iconic. The next is her eyes, which I had a special idea for doing that. And lastly, of course, her outfit. And this is, of course, the most tedious part of making a puppet, the hands and getting all the wire in there. And I decided to do removable arm rods for this. I decided that just to give me a little bit more flexibility, since I had no idea how I was going to use this puppet on the show. And this is one of the hardest parts here, which is stuffing those foam hands with the wire inside of the fabric hands, because you really want a snug fit. It's better to be just a hair tighter than it is to be too loose. But of course, we're always looking for that Cinderella fit. Now this is one of my favorite things to do, is to be draping the clothing for the puppets. Since puppets have a different anatomy than a human, you can't just use baby clothes or clothes off the rack somewhere. Puppets tend to have a really unique shape, and every puppet's different. So the best way is to drape a brand new pattern for your puppet. Of course, I'm looking at a picture of Chef Anne's coat as a guide for myself. So this is the brand new pattern I made for her coat. And now I'm using that pattern to cut it out of the final fabric here. And here I'm using a white gabardine. The white gabardine I found has like that perfect look. I cut out all the pieces and even an inside lining because I wanted to do red piping on this coat. And all the piping I made myself as well. I didn't buy piping at Joann's or anything. And for that I used a red gabardine with some cotton rope that I just had lying around the house. And here's the finished jacket, turning inside out and then fitting it onto the puppet. This is a fun little detail too, is putting these buttons on that really gives it that chef look. Now this is Chef Anne's nose. I wanted to give this puppet kind of that Sesame Street whatnot look, so I'm not going for high detail to make it look like a caricature puppet like you sometimes see, especially for ventriloquists. They tend to have a lot of facial details. This, I wanted to have that kind of Sesame Street kind of look. So I picked an off-color, slightly darker pink for the nose and for the ears, just to have a little bit of contrast, because I wasn't sure if this puppet was going to be seen up close or far away, so I wanted these details just to kind of stand out a little bit more. And don't worry, when she's finished, I don't have the ears sticking out like that. I kind of pinned them back, because I wanted to kind of keep Anne's natural silhouette. Now this piece of foam here I'm using for the hair, because if I just put fur on the head or even used a wig, it'd be hard to have that support going all the way up to make a structurally sound puppet. So I do this foam first, and then I'm going to cover all that with white fur to give it, again, that Burrell look. And I decided to sew the foam on just in case it didn't work, because if I glued that on, it'd just be a mess on top of the head. And I quickly draped a fur pattern around her head, and this is me stitching it on. Then I comb out the fur to make it look less like fur and more like hair. And then a little trim along the back. And now it's time to style the hair. And for this, I just use some watered down Elmer's glue. And then I make sure to comb it too so it looks more like hair. And believe it or not, a lot of people actually use Elmer's glue in their hair. Those really, really high mohawks that you see sometimes, you tend to use Elmer's glue. Now these are Chef Anne's eyes, and I decided not to use pupils because when you see a lot of these pictures of her from far away, that mascara just is so iconic looking on her, and I wanted to just exaggerate that feature, which again is kind of a Muppety thing to do, which is the exact look I was going for. And here she is. And there she is. I think she turned out pretty good. You made me look great. Well, hopefully that means you'll go easy on me. I wouldn't count on it.